Welcome back to Moby's Kitchen, and tonight we're going to be filming part 2 of our Mississippi chuck roast recipe. Now what we're going to do with the leftover Mississippi chuck roast and all that au jus gravy is make Mississippi Birria tacos. So if you've never heard of Birria tacos, it's kind of a slow roasted beef, and they have a nice au jus sauce that goes with it that you dip it in. Well, that's what we're gonna do, but we're gonna use the Mississippi chuck roast recipe to make our own Mississippi Birria tacos. They're absolutely delicious, and you don't wanna miss out on this one. If you haven't watched part 1 of me showing how we make the actual Mississippi chuck roast, the link's down below in the description. So take a look at that first, and that'll show you how to make the actual Mississippi chuck roast. Okay, so here's the ingredients you're gonna need. You're gonna need some white corn tortillas. You could use yellow corn. The key here is to have a corn tortilla that's about taco sized here. We have some onion powder, some cumin, some garlic powder, some limes, some avocado oil, fresh cilantro, a red onion. We have this Oaxaca cheese. This is kind of like, the best way to explain it, it's kind of like Mexican mozzarella cheese. It's really good and creamy, and it melts nice. And then we've got our leftover Mississippi chuck roast and the au jus down here. And you can see there's a little bit of fat layer from the actual, refrigerator, so all the fat kind of rose. And we're gonna use some of that fat to fry off our tortillas when we get to that point. So let's get over to the stove and start this process. Okay, before we get over to the stove, we want to cut our vegetables up and our cilantro and whatnot. So here's how I like to do it. This is a cleaned bunch of cilantro here. I like to just kind of cut down like this to start. If some stems get in there, it's great. I think they have great flavor. This kind of limits the amount of stems by cutting down on it. They're perfectly fine to eat though. And then what I'll do is we don't need this like finely diced or anything. Just run a rough chop kind of through the cilantro here. And that's good right there. That's all you need to do. It's just a nice rough chop on it. Next up, we're gonna dice up our onion. Okay, next up, we're gonna cut up our lime here. So a little trick, if you haven't heard of this one yet, just to release the juices, you give it a little bit of pressure and roll your limes, and it kind of helps break up and release those juices inside the lime before you cut it. Then I like to just cut it right in half. And these are pretty small limes, so I'll just cut them into 3 pieces. If you have a bigger lime, you can maybe get 4 lime wedges out of it. That's it, and you just repeat that process with all your limes. Okay, so next up, we're gonna grate our cheese. This is the Oaxaca cheese, which I think goes best with this. I like to fresh grate all of my cheese rather than buy it pre-grated. I feel like there's like this waxy consistency and it doesn't melt as good. So as you can see, just a nice simple grate on there. That's how you want it, and continue on. Okay, we're over at the stove and we're getting our pot preheated here, but I wanna show you, this is the leftover au jus, and there's fat in that au jus, and we want this fat. And as you can see, it's easy to get because it's been in the fridge all night. So we're gonna get some of these chunks of fat out of here, and we're just gonna reserve them because we can use them to fry up the tortillas. So we're gonna get about half of it out and leave the other half in there because we're gonna dip our tortillas as well, and we want some fat in the actual liquid that'll be on the top, and it'll render down. Okay, so next up, we're gonna take our leftover Mississippi chuck roast, and we're gonna drop it in our pan. It's preheating for about 4 minutes. You can put as much as you feel like you're gonna need. I'm making all of it here. And then we're gonna take the rest of our au jus, and we're gonna pour that in with the fat. That fat will render down as this cooks. And then we're gonna get this cooking here for until it's nice and warm, so we can use it to dip our tortillas in, and you'll see that process in a bit. Okay, as you can see, all of our fat is rendered down now, and we're starting to see a little bit of bubbles come up, so we're almost to a simmer. We're gonna add in our cumin. We can do maybe a teaspoon of cumin there. And we're gonna add in a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. And the same with some onion powder, a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of onion powder. This just adds a little bit different flavored profile to the au jus with all the flavor that's already in there. We're gonna mix it in, continue simmering this, and then in the meantime, we're gonna get our frying pan preheated here. So we're gonna move this onto maybe a slower cooking burner and move the frying pan onto this hotter burner here and get that preheated so we're ready to go. Okay, so our frying pan's been heating up here on medium for about 5 minutes. We're gonna take some of that fat that we scraped off earlier and put just a little bit in there. You'll see it'll start to melt here. Just a little crazy, so be careful. Pops up. And if you don't want to use the fat, you could use the avocado oil like we showed at the beginning. I just think this adds another layer of flavor. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our tortilla, we're gonna dip it in this sauce. The fat that's on the outside will coat it's kind of floating at the top, all that fat that's rendered off. So we're gonna coat our tortilla, let it drain a little bit, put it right in the pan there. And then what we're gonna do is make sure you use some slotted tongs here so the juice can drain. We're gonna grab some of that meat, let it drain for a second, put it in half of the tortilla here. A little bit more. Let it drain, and half the tortilla. Okay, then we're gonna take some of our cheese here, sprinkle that on. That's good. Then we're gonna let this kind of fry up here. Like I said, we're on medium heat. I edged it up just a tad here. The first one always kind of takes a little longer. Once this pan keeps getting hotter and hotter, it goes. So we're gonna let that tortilla on the outside fry up a little bit for a minute, and then we'll fold this over. So I like to use a spatula to do this. I think it's easier than using the tongs, but you could grab it with tongs. Kind of get a little, so you're gonna get your spatula under there, fold it over. You can use your fingers there just at the beginning. Be careful because it can be hot. And you hold the spatula for just a minute here until this gets kind of locked in the folded position, as you can see, just like that. And then you let this fry for probably about, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute on one side. So we're gonna continue to fry it. We'll keep the camera going for this so you can see the exact length of time that it takes here. All right. That's the sound you want to hear, that sizzle. You can see it kind of partially fried at the beginning from the tortilla laying flat in there, and you can see that cheese is getting all melty, and that beef is so good. All right, so you can let this go as long as you want to the crisp that you like. I like them kind of in between, like a super crispy and like a soft sort of bite. So I like them like slightly crispy, I guess halfway there. To me, that gives the best bite. All right, and we'll flip. And remember, if it's not exactly how you want it, you can always flip back to the other side. That's perfect. See that nice little golden brown crisp on there? That's what you want. You're gonna do the same thing to the other side. That took what, about 45 seconds or so? We'll keep going. Now you're going to repeat this process with however many Mississippi Birria tacos you'd like to make. So depending on how many people you're cooking for, I'm telling you, make extra ones because people, once they take a bite out of these, are going to want more than they normally eat. They're so delicious. My family absolutely loves them. I haven't seen these done before, so this might be the first time you're seeing it too. And I'm telling you, make these. After you make that Mississippi chuck roast, in my opinion, it is the best way to use the leftovers. All right, so I think we're good there. So we're gonna get our spatula under there, and we'll get it over here on our plate. You can see, we'll just slide it in there for now, and then we keep going. So I'm just gonna show you how we made this one. You can see that melty cheese on there and the beef. I'm telling you, this is gonna be so delicious. So let's show you the next step here in a moment. Okay, so our next step, we gotta get some of this au jus into a serving container here. It's for dipping. So it's okay if you go kind of on the edge, and if you get a little bit of the meat in there, that's totally fine. So we're gonna fill this up. All right, that's about right. Then we're gonna take some of our diced onion, put that right in the sauce. Some of our cilantro, right in the sauce. And then a squeeze of lime here. If you like more lime, you can add more lime. All right, and that's what our dipping sauce looks like. Okay, we've gotten to my favorite part of the video, and it's taste test time. We've got a couple of our Mississippi Birria tacos here. We've loaded in some onions and some cilantro there. You just open it up and put those same onions and cilantros that you have. I'm gonna do maybe another little squeeze of lime in here. Okay. We're gonna grab one of these, and now we've got our au jus, our dipping sauce here. We're gonna just dip it right in there. Get it nice and coated. Take a bite. I'm telling you guys, I always say this. This might be one of my favorite things I've made for the channel so far. It is so good. As you saw, it's super easy to make. You have got the leftover Mississippi Birria. I'm sorry, Mississippi chuck roast, and you can make this Mississippi Birria. Definitely do it. And once again, check that link down below on how to make the actual Mississippi chuck roast, because that's what you need to start with. Your family's gonna love you if you make these, I promise. Please like and subscribe and come back for more. We've got some great videos coming your way.